and welcome to another exciting episode of Your State with me, State Representative Christopher Davis. I have with me here today Commissioner Glenn Marshall from the Department of Labor. Thank you, Commissioner, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Chris, for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Now, I just wanted to start and talk about a little bit about the Department of Labor here in the state of Connecticut, kind of what its mission is and what you guys look to accomplish here for the workers of our state.
Well, actually, you know, when you look at our mission, and I think a lot of people don't realize, I mean, we're charged with enforcing about 169 statutes that are on the books, but we also offer a lot of services to people and to businesses as well. And that's one of the misnomers. I think people just thought we were a regulatory agency. So I've been getting out there with businesses, CBIA, a lot of different forums to let them know that we're more than just a regulatory agency.
Now, one of the major things you guys deal with is the services that you provide. And during these tough economic times, you guys have been called on a lot. I was just wondering if you could kind of expand upon the state of the economy here in the state of Connecticut, how you guys see it, and what some of the activities that you guys are doing to try to turn that around.
Sure. Well, let me say this. We're doing more with less. To kind of put things in perspective, before the downturn in 2008, you know, we're charged with the unemployment. Mm-hmm. We were processing about 35 to 45,000 claims a week, and at the peak about 18 months ago, we were processing 180,000 claims a week. Right now, we're down to about 105 to 110, and I think that's indicative of the fact that Connecticut's making a recovery slowly but surely. We've had 8 consecutive months of the unemployment rate dropping, and it's at its lowest since like March of 2009.
Now, what are some of the areas that you see growing in order to bring down those numbers? You notice quite a bit of a drop-off from the peak in 2010. You know, what kind of sectors in the economy or job workforce sectors have you seen kind of have that growth?
Well, actually, construction, believe it or not, because for the construction industry, it was more like a depression than the Great Recession. I mean, the unemployment rates were upwards of 30%, but we're seeing an increase in the construction end of things, which is always good, especially with the state of the infrastructure and all. The housing market hasn't come back yet, but construction in general has, and also a lot of growth in the healthcare industry as well. The manufacturing sector has been kind of flat, but we have some ideas in mind to, you know, do a good promoting campaign job on advanced manufacturing, which is crucial to Connecticut's economy.
Would you like to expand upon some of those new initiatives for advanced manufacturing?
Well, coming out of the special session that we had, there were not only numerous tax incentives, but there was programs that were put in the works. One of them is called Step Up. We're very excited about it. We think that when all is said and done, it'll probably be the most successful program that came out of the special session. And I think the uniqueness about it is there was all the talk about the first 5 and taking care of big business. This here, the governor and the legislature created this with the emphasis on helping small business with the incentive of putting unemployed people back to work. When you think of that, in Connecticut, 90% of all registered businesses have 25 or less employees. That we needed to do something for the small businesses. This program is bonded, so even though it was passed in the special session, we weren't able to get it up and running till it got through the bond agenda, the bond commission. So it's in place since the end of February, and already we've had about 70 plus businesses that have reached out to us, and we've gotten 150, and it's growing every day, people that were currently unemployed to work.
Now, what exactly is in that program? What are some of the incentives for employers to hire people in this program?
Well, it's broken into 2 elements, and I'll get into a third element that we hope to have soon also. And one is called the subsidized wage side, which is for all businesses other than retail that have less than 50 employees that have been registered in Connecticut doing business for at least a year. And the people that they hire have to be currently unemployed, not necessarily collecting, but not working. The other part of it is to help the manufacturers in general, and that is a grant program that has an on-the-job training aspect. Now, the thing about that is it's just for manufacturers, but manufacturers could partake in that one or in the other piece as well. Not at the same time for the same individual, but they could, do either or. So we're very excited about that. And there's a third element that was in a bill that didn't pass, but there's talk with the legislature that they will probably get it in the implementer, and that's to expand it to cover returning veterans. Because in Connecticut we have such a high unemployment rate for returning veterans. Nationally it's 30% between the ages of 18 and 24, and Connecticut is double the state average. And in the next 6 months we're going to have roughly 6,000 returning veterans coming back, so we need to help them out.
And that's an important thing to note, that not only veterans, but there's other sectors of our workforce that are kind of hit particularly hard, especially, say, young people here in the state of Connecticut. Do you have any idea of, what kind of impact the economy has had on the young workforce between 18 and 35?
Well, you say between 18 and 35, and it's even younger than that. We have our summer youth program, which we're very excited about because there was, you folks put an additional $1 million in there, and it's really needed. So our budget, instead of $3.5 million, will be $4.5 million. And it's so important because I'm going to give you a startling statistic. In the urban cities in Connecticut in the year 2000, African American males between 18 and 26 had about a 50% employment rate, and today it's 15%.
Wow.
And that's just one segment. So we're looking at, through our Connecticut Employment and Training Commission, coming up with strategies to take the summer youth program and expand it to an all-year-round program. And you're right. I mean, just young people in general are having a difficult time getting back to work. So we have various programs out there, whether it's Step Up, the Summer Youth, and we even have one called the Connecticut Conservation Corps that would cover up to ages 25. We're working with Commissioner Esty in DEEP and Commissioner Smith in Department of Economic and Community Development. And we put together a program that we're going to do this summer to put up to 60 people to work in these state parks with an emphasis on green construction and green technology. So we're excited about that as well.
That's great. Are there some other initiatives that the Conservation Corps do here in the state of Connecticut as well?
Well, Commissioner Esty covers the Conservation Corps. That particular aspect of it is what I'm familiar with. But
well, what about some of the other things in the summer youth programs that you guys offer? What are some of the opportunities if someone was interested in perhaps following that path of employment during these upcoming summer months?
Well, yeah, basically they could reach out. We have information on our website, Connecticut DOL website, and they could get information there, or they can reach out to our partners in the one-stops. There's 5 of them around the state. There's actually more offices than that, but and they will hook them up with the jobs or the job opportunities. Another segment we're very excited about is that normally government has available usually around 1,000 or more jobs, durational jobs for the summer, and the governor reached out to us, and we're working with him and the other agencies. There's going to be roughly about 1,100 jobs available this summer. We've already had, because we have it on our website, 3,000 people in less than a month that have applied for these durational summer jobs that the state will be offering.
Now, what are some of those positions that the state offers for these durational jobs?
Well, most of them are made up in, as I said before, related to DEEP. Mm-hmm. That would be in a lot of the parks and facilities like that. And then there's some more advanced one, but most of them are more lower to mid-level kind of positions,
So do you see a situation where, that could be expanded over year-round? So where would those kinds of jobs be generated if the parks are pretty much only operational during the summer months? Where would we see full-time employment, or at least full year-round employment opportunities for some of these youth programs?
And you're right. Those are more durational or seasonal. But what we're doing, let's take advanced manufacturing, for example. I'm co-chairing this initiative called Dream It, Do It, along with Dr. Kennedy from the Board of Regents. And we're working very closely together, and we're excited about that because there's more coordination on education tied into workforce development. And so we co-chair this Dream It, Do It committee, and there's roughly 20 states that have the same program. And it's basically getting out and promoting advanced manufacturing to youth right from, a grammar school on up, And we actually have budgeted that we were able to work with the Department of Economic and Community Development to budget $500,000 for this year for promoting that to youth. And that first job experience is key, getting them that access to that first job for them to make decisions sometimes as to the career paths that they will follow.
Well, certainly, and at the minimum, it instills that work ethic that can last a lifetime because they recognize the importance of having to earn their own money. So kind of switching gears a little bit back to a little bit earlier of our conversation with the unemployment numbers. If you could walk us through, if I'm an employee and I receive notice that I'm being laid off or that I'm going to be unemployed, what is the next step? How do I go in and kind of work with the Department of Labor to get the unemployment benefits that I need?
Well, basically, and it's interesting you brought that up because we're actually in the process of changing our model too. Many years ago, you're a young guy probably before you were in the job, but unfortunately for me, I can't say the same. We used to go into like the unemployment center, and we would give what was then called the pink slip, which they don't have anymore either. And we'd sign up, and then they would refer us to employment services, and we would sit down with an individual one-on-one, and they would assess our skills, what we did, and then give us leads. Through technological advances, and this goes for all of 50 states, everybody kind of got away from that. And then if you factor in that from the late 90s till now, we have actually in the Department of Labor about 35 to 40% less people. So we have to do more with less. So that one-on-one doesn't occur anymore. You go and you get your separation papers, and you can go online and sign up, and unless an employer contests it, then you're all set and you collect. And then you're obligated to go and look for jobs and all of that. But that one-on-one just wasn't occurring anymore. And we're actually in the process of going back to that, which is going to take an entire formation of our employment services unit and our unemployment. And we're doing currently, because it was mandated by federal law, but it was something we were going to work on anyway, called a reemployment assessment. So individuals that go from the state 26 weeks of collecting onto the what we call emergency unemployment compensation, which is federal, are now mandated within 2 weeks to come in to one of our centers and sit down and go through a reemployment assessment. And we just had to get that up and running. We had 4 weeks to do it, and we just started doing it like a week ago. And it's all hands on deck. We've redeployed our resources, and we're dealing with about 2,000 people a week.
Now, are these new applicants to the UI benefits, or is it a situation where you guys are kind of reaching back and bringing in some of the people that have been unemployed for an extended period of time?
Yeah, these aren't new applicants. If somebody gets laid off, they go through the state tier of unemployment benefits, which is 26 weeks. And because of how bad this downturn was, there were 2 federal tiers that were added to that, what we call EUC, or an emergency unemployment compensation, which used to have 4 levels. And then there was the last level, which was EB, or emergency benefits, which was an additional 20 weeks. So there was a total of 99 potential weeks that somebody could collect. Due to our unemployment rate dropping for so many months, we've actually are not considered a high unemployment state anymore, which is good. The fallout of that is we've lost that entire tier of extended benefits, and now we're actually down to like 67 weeks. So it's falling off, but the individuals that go through that assessment that I was talking about, they go through their first 26 weeks of state unemployment benefits, and then when they go on to the federal, that's when they come in for the evaluation.
Okay.
Our goal, though, is to make it mandatory for everyone that collects to have to come in within a couple of weeks and sit down with us and go over that, which I think would be good, but it will take a tremendous amount of resources.
And kind of going back to what you just mentioned about how our benefits are kind of shortened now because we're no longer seen as an emergency state as far as unemployment goes. We hear time and time again about the real unemployment number, those who have either run out of their benefits and no longer apply, or people who never even applied for the benefits at first, or perhaps more importantly, back to your earlier point, those small business owners that don't qualify for the unemployment. Could you kind of expand upon that kind of workforce that we have in the state of Connecticut as far as the ones that kind of are lost in the shuffle, that aren't included in those official numbers.
Sure, and that's a very good point, and although we don't know the exact numbers, we have the Bureau of Labor Statistics in our department that, crunches the numbers, and we work with the feds. Every state's in the same boat. But let's say you totally run out of your 99 weeks, what it was prior, and you are no longer collecting. Those people, and by the way, we're losing about 450 people per week that exhaust all benefits. Some of those people may retire because we're finding that people that are up there in age, in their 50s or whatever, are having a difficult time getting back to work. So they may find ways to retire, or their spouses have enough income. So they unfortunately kind of give up, and they're not calculated, not because of our effort, but they basically have disappeared. So that number of unemployment, even though it's at a low of 7.7, it's safe to say that it would be in the double digits if we were able to calculate in those individuals that you're alluding to.
And another staggering number of people are what they call underemployed, where they perhaps have the training or the education to have a higher pay or a higher level of work than they currently do. Where does Connecticut stand with the underemployed?
Well, it's a problem nationally. And that's why some of the things that we're doing with the Office of Workforce Competitiveness and the Connecticut Employment and Training Commission is we're looking of ways from an early age of really getting people educated and work ready. There's the low-skilled, the mid-skilled, and then the higher-skilled people. And, we're developing strategies to basically get everybody more ready to meet the needs of employers, because that's one of the knocks that we hear from a lot of employers is in general that they can't get the proper workforce, the trained workforce in Connecticut. So we really are moving at lightning speed to try to develop policies that we could recommend back to you folks in the legislature to implement.
Sure, and we talked about the Step Up program. What are some of the other new job programs or initiatives that I understand the Department of Labor works with the Department of Economic and Community Development and some of these programs, some of the other departments within the state. What are some of the initiatives that are out there?
Well, let me say this: we have the apprenticeship. Okay, that's a tremendous model. And we're in the process of reconstituting the Apprenticeship Council. The governor is in the process of reappointing people. And that model is tremendous because it's an earn while you learn concept. And we utilize that like with our jobs funnel. Okay, and the jobs funnel is a very successful model, kind of like a clearinghouse of screening people primarily for construction that's been in effect for over a dozen years with a lot of success. So much so that the federal, we applied for a federal grant. We were one of only 6 states to get a $5.8 million Green Jobs Funnel initiative. That model, we're going to take that money and expand it to 7 areas around the state. That's one that we utilize. We have the film industry training program along with the tax credits that we have for the film industry that we do in conjunction with the Department of Economic and Community Development that we may be looking to expand the jobs funnel model into that because it's similar to construction. We also have some good incumbent worker training programs. One of the things that we looked to do in this legislative go-around was narrow them down into one because we had a few of them and there were all these different forms to fill out, and it was very confusing to businesses that wanted to train their incumbent workers. So we're trying to streamline as much as possible.
Now, also along with those initiatives, you guys help sponsor job fairs and other kind of forums for businesses and job seekers to kind of unite. And I know your website offers some features too. If you could expand upon some of the things that you guys do to try to connect businesses with the jobs that are available for the workforce.
Well, that's a very good point. And we have our traditional jobs fairs, but we've actually come up with a model working with Congressman Larson that's gained some national attention. And when you look at it, when we had an unemployment rate of 4%, we had more of a generalist approach. Businesses would take people because they needed them, and there were, it was a supply and demand. Today, businesses in general can be selective, and they are. So we need to be able to come up with better ways of drilling down the skills of the workforce. So we did this with Congressman Larson in the manufacturing sector. And now we're going to take it to scales. Assistant Secretary Jane Oates came up from D.C., and they like it, and they're looking for funding to take it nationally. But we're going to be doing it on May 24th for returning veterans, the same model, at the in Middletown at the new Veterans Center there. And we're going to take returning veterans, and we will do an intensive drilling down of their skills, and we bring in the businesses that are looking to hire. And it's kind of like the speed dating concept, where the individual goes from one owner to another owner to another owner, and they interview them, and they say, I like Chris, or I like Glenn. And we've had some success with it. We're going to be doing that on May 24th. It's on our website with manufacturing again, looking for machinists. And then on June 14th, we're going to be doing it with the construction industry. So we're pretty excited about that. And we think it's a model that fits the needs of businesses more today than it did, in the low unemployment days.
Sure. And are we doing, we mentioned with veterans that are returning, but is there other kind of programs similar to that available to the general public that didn't serve in the military? Absolutely.
The first one we did with Congressman Larson was just open to anyone, whether they were unemployed or underemployed. And we feel an obligation to try and help out the veterans because so many of them are coming back. Like there's a National Guard unit with 70 truck drivers that are going to be coming back to us. So we want to try to plug them into, the industry. But we are definitely going to be using this model now and taking it to whatever industry where there are needs for jobs.
So do you see with these veterans coming back from service, overseas or perhaps when they were onshore and they're returning to our communities, some of the issues that they have with getting back into the workforce, either the skills they learned in the military aren't able to be translated into licenses here in the state of Connecticut or vice versa, and an area where we can improve upon as the state of Connecticut, try to help these guys out?
That's a very good point. One of the things we tried to do early in session, but being a short session, unfortunately, you can only get so much done, was taking a look at, like if you drove a truck in the service, why shouldn't you be able to be plugged in to, getting a CDL truck license here? And also with some of the other licensed trades, we'll say, or occupations. Now we have to be careful to make sure, but we want to do everything we can, and I think a bill to make that happen and make it easier to transfer the skills and certifications they had in the service to the private sector here is paramount. We'll be looking to work with folks and you folks in the legislature to get it passed next time around.
Certainly, and I know myself, I introduced a bill earlier this year with the Veterans Committee to try to make that kind of thing happen, because it's quite evident that there's quite a few veterans returning from overseas that have these special skills, and we have the jobs available, especially in the trucking industry here in the state of Connecticut, and we've been unable to make those kind of meet up, and we want to do everything we can to try to help them out.
I know, and personally speaking, when I think about what the veterans have done for us, putting their lives on the line, maybe they might not come back to fight for our freedoms. This is the least we can do. It's a focal point of mine to help get them reemployed.
So kind of summing up our whole discussion here, with individuals who are unemployed or looking for work, they're underemployed, what are some of the just broad options available to them from the state of Connecticut? We have our unemployment benefits that we discussed at length, some of these job initiatives, but is there anything else out there that can really help out the people of Connecticut?
Well, I think that, like I said, we have a lot of services that are offered with our one-stops, our partners. They could go in there at any time and set up, or they could look on our website. But we're trying to come up with new ideas every day, and that's our commitment. We have a lot there now, but there's much more work to do, and especially in the educating and training aspects with our current workforce in Connecticut.
And what would be some of those new programs that you'd be looking forward to hopefully getting done in the future?
Well, I think, tying in, like I said, let's say the apprenticeship, for example. Somebody goes through a 4-year apprenticeship, taking that and making it, in some cases this already exists, but maybe taking that and being able to apply it with higher ed for college credits, so that those individuals now have incentive. Hey, I got 40 credits going through the apprenticeship. Let me go back and get my associate's degree. I think it's things like that. We need to make it more interconnected and user-friendly, not only for business, but also for the individual workers as well, so that they better themselves, so that we can tie them into better paying jobs and careers.
And I think that's certainly the goal of everybody involved. I mean, finding people employment here in the state of Connecticut is not a partisan issue. It's certainly bipartisan. We're doing all that we can to try to help out the Department of Labor to try to make that happen. So if any of you out there that are looking for work, or you're unemployed or underemployed and you need assistance, please visit the Department of Labor's website at ct.gov/DOL. That's ct.gov/DOL. And I want to thank Commissioner Marshall very much for being here today and answering your questions. And if you need any more assistance or have any other concerns, please feel free to contact me at 860-240-8700. That's 860-240-8700, or at christopher.davis@housegop.ct.gov. And once again, thank you very much for watching Your State with me, State Representative Christopher Davis.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.